man. You need to buy yourself a gun. What? Gun? What? Like a handgun for personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. Oh. What? An automatic rifle and a lot of ammo. Guns? Yeah, guns.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like you Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Jack for the cops in riot gear, gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
It is Tuesday. It's Primer Time. My name is Michael.
And I'm Nick. First day of frost on the ground this morning. Looked outside, and it wasn't the Colombian bang bang.
That's I don't know how I deal with frost. I'm not a cold weather kid.
Yeah, we're still seeing a lot of the fall colors on the trees. So I mean, it's kind of dangerous to drive because we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's a really cute tree. Because being from Arizona and all, you don't see trees, and certainly nothing is red.
Yeah, I do miss the changing of seasons. We still have green trees out right now. Honestly, this is the first time it's been below 80 in a long time here. So
yeah, I think we're still hitting the mid 60s.
Almost going to enjoy it. You get a chance to do anything fun?
Yeah, actually, I did. I went to a gun store today. I actually had a medical appointment looking at the nasty ankle that I've got, and after the appointment, went over to a place in town where I work and play, and just kind of went inside to see what they offer. Talked to the folks in there about their FFL transfer fees. Went to see what they have in terms of off the shelf parts for ARs, and then also to see if they sold ammo. And I was kind of surprised because when I go in there and I talk to the guy and I'm like, hey, what do you have on the shelf? And the guy's like, oh, we got a really, really extensive collection. And I said, oh, well, you know what? Do you have a firing pin retaining pin? And the guy says, oh, yeah, don't have that. And it's like, well, then why do you say you got everything?
Now, would you consider a firing pin retaining pin to be a commonly expended part on an AR-15, or is that more of a special part?
I will say,
is that something that would be in the survival kit for the AR-15?
You certainly would want to have an extra one on hand. The reason is because it's a easily misplaced or easily dropped item, and I tell you what, you try and operate a AR without a firing pin retaining pin, and you could put yourself in some danger. Never mind the fact that if you turn the bolt carrier group upside down, there goes your firing pin, and you're not shooting anything.
Okay. All right. So fairly common item that they should have, and they didn't have it.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I'm seeing it online. It's literally a $1 piece of equipment, and it'll be about $9 shipping to get it to you.
Well, I've seen the little AR-15 survival kits, the ones that fit inside the pistol grip, and consists of a firing pin and a couple of springs, and you would know exactly what goes in it. You've seen them retail, and they usually retail for less than $30. And it's I would say that with the AR series, it's probably a good thing to have.
Yeah, and when you talk about individual pieces for an AR that you probably want to have an extra one of, certainly you want to have an extra. We'd say a lower parts kit, which would probably include some of the springs and clips for the trigger group. But you're definitely going to want to have some of the individual pins for the bolt carrier group, and then heck, you may even want to have the takedown pins for the upper and lower where they connect. Reason is because sometimes those things just don't go together the way they should. The individual little detent springs may work loose, and I'll tell you what, when you're putting together those detent springs that go into the takedown pins, those things are under pressure and they are small. So if you
you got a tendency to shoot them across the room, is what you're saying?
You do, and if you're not wearing eye protection, you may lose an eye.
That's something that we probably don't talk about enough is protective equipment for when you do go shoot or when you work on your firearm, because, well, like you're saying, there's these springs. You're working with sometimes metal that can shear, metal that can spall, and you're working with chemicals.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the things that I think is most overlooked is eye protection right off the bat. I mean, if you think of any one sensory organ that you would need besides your hands, you probably need your eyes.
I would say so. And you can't really put a price on keeping them. The protection is cheap. I know at the local House of Chinese Tools, you can get a really cool pair of tinted sunglasses, kind of safety glasses that are Z87, which is the OSHA standard for protection, right. Or you can get the clear ones, and the tinted ones are $2, and the clear ones are $1.
Yeah, and I think that most people will have most people that are into the shooting sports will have a pair that they use just for shooting, whether they're the amber colored or the rose colored, shooting lenses. You want something that's impact resistant.
I wear those cheap $2 Z87s. I'll buy 5 or 6 pairs of them. I leave them everywhere in the truck. Leave a pair on my hat, and pretty much a pair everywhere. They're cheap enough, and they are bulletproof. And I'll tell you what, I'm not joking about that. Yeah. We took some out last year, and we put a pair of them because they're $1. They're really, and in my area, there's a lot of plants and stuff, and these are safety items that are handed out. Just like pens at work or notepads or something. They get taken home. Right. We put a pair on a pumpkin, and we shot the pumpkin with a 12 gauge. Now, bird shot, number 7 or number 8, 7.5, whatever the weight of the load was. It was, maybe an ounce and an 1/8, something like that. Nothing between 3/4 and an ounce and an 1/8. It was whatever was cheap at Walmart that day, I think.
Right.
And which normally puts it like in the dove and quail section. Destroyed the pumpkin.
Well, that's good.
But none of the pellets went through the glass or through the plastic.
Okay.
So I was actually really surprised with that.
Yeah, this is just the impact resistant plastic.
They were actually impact resistant. They did not let any pellets through. Yeah. Now the rest of the pumpkin was shattered, just destroyed, but the eyeballs were fine.
Yeah, and that's all you ask for. And I think one of the other commonly used pieces of protective equipment that you should have on hand is some form of hearing protection, whether it's passive or active hearing protection. And when I say passive or active, you either want a set of good earmuffs, or you want the electronic earmuffs that muffle high decibel sound, but will allow the lower decibel stuff to go through unfiltered.
How do you feel about the squishy roll-up earplugs?
Actually, I almost use those exclusively when I began shooting, mostly because it's quick. You can get them by the 500 or 5,000 rolls, the 5,000 pair rolls. And when I was in Germany, one of my hunting partners just gave me a set of them. He's like, "Hey, do you want a roll?" And I'm like, "Well, what does this cost?" And he goes, "We get them so cheap, it's negligible."
Have you ever done I would hesitate to call it a redneck trick, because that almost implies that rednecks are. It doesn't imply the beauty of it, but actually, have you ever actually used loaded ammunition in your ears?
Why would anybody do that?
I've done that, and I'll tell you, it sounds a lot worse than it is, and it worked well with 9mm.
Okay. Well, let me go ahead and throw caution to the wind here. If you've ever done that, don't do that again.
It came in handy in a pinch.
Well, yeah. The only
I
problem
have
is
to say it was over 20 years ago. So
okay. I was going to say, because that's one mistake you'll only make once.
You have to look at it at the true relative danger to it. There was nothing that was going to impact the primers that were sitting in my ears, and it was a lot better than saying "what" really loud for the next 4 hours.
Yeah, I would take my chances with what.
Yeah, it was a different time. It was a different time. At this point, I'd probably suffer the pain, or make sure that I carry some hearing protection with me now.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing for me is, I really, like I said, I've been shooting with my profession for almost 20 years, and anybody who fires an AR-15 series rifle will see that with the flash hider, it makes a very small caliber round sound much larger.
It's insanely loud for the size of the bullet.
Exactly. I mean, it's actually, I would even say, disproportionately loud for the size of the bullet. I have 30-06 rifles that are just bolt action hunting rifles, and not saying that they're the same, but relatively loud to somebody who's not familiar with hearing a rifle being fired. I've taken him to a range that was co-use between civilian and military, and the folks that were running the range, who were civilians, they had no idea that we were firing a 30 caliber projectile and almost side by side with 223s. They had no idea. They just knew that one bang was a little bit louder than the other.
I found the 7.62 by 39 coming out of something with a slant cut muzzle brake be far quieter than the 5.4 in many different platforms.
Right. Well, I will say that you look at what's being offered out there right now. I mean, you've got the 30-30, which is the old standby, so it's a 30 caliber round from I think it was 1830. You've got the 30-06. You've got a 308. You've got 338 Winchester Magnum. You got 300 Winchester Magnum. Like I said before, anything in that Magnum series is going to make a really loud boom, and chances are whatever it hits is going to make a really big hole too. So a lot of folks, you got to kind of temper what it is that you want to do, in terms of the application of the round that you're going to employ against whatever it is that you're trying to do, whether it's just target, whether it's plinking, or whether it's putting some stuff in the freezer.
Now, speaking of plinking, you had a chance to visit your local gun shop. Was there any 22 in stock?
Well, this is one of the things that was really interesting. When I spoke to the guy behind the counter, I introduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm coming in and I'm not exactly walking, like a normal guy my age would walk. So I'm pretty sure that
that really cool shoe on too.
Actually, I was a bad guy. I just kind of came out of the appointment with the doctor half hour before, and I didn't feel like going and putting the boot back on. So I had a nice Adidas sandal that I kind of keep in the car just to drive with, because there's no way I'm driving with that boot on. So when I went inside the store, just told the guy, I'm like, hey, I'm fairly new in the area, and I want to get familiar with your business and what you guys offer. And one of the questions I asked him was, aside from the what he charges for FFL fees, is do you keep certain ammunition stocked on hand? And he said, well, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us because we have 2 big box stores here in the area. He says we tend to specialize in the AR market, and they have a lot of tactical stuff on the shelf. They don't have firing pin retaining pins, but they do have sling mounts. They had pistol grips. They had A2 style hand guards, heat shields. Every Magpul item.
The complete Magpul line.
They did. They had every Magpul item you could imagine.
But no firing pin retaining pins.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of the stuff that in terms of like the gas tubes were already purchased from Brownells, just repurposed with different price tags from the store.
I see quite a bit of that. I see quite a bit of in my area. I see the local gun shops that will have. You saw, you could have bought the exact same thing from Brownells, like you said, or from even the Sportsman's Guide.
Yeah,
I see these things, so that I know for a fact that this was on sale at Sportsman's Guide, within the last 2 weeks. And now he's got a bunch of it. He's got it for a price significant than what Sportsman's Guide had it. And Sportsman's Guide by no means is a deal. It's not the place to save money at when you're purchasing firearms items. It's a nice place to get odd items and maybe some surplus things. They're a closeout place, so they don't really have to have any kind of standards.
Right. Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I've bought some ammunition from Sportsman's Guide that I wouldn't buy again.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think that if you've got an odd or metric caliber, like a hard to find, like a 8x56 or 8x57. In the States, you're not going to find that too often, but Sportsman Guide seems to pick up a lot of that stuff, and chances are it's the old corrosive, packed in cosmoline or whatever, and it's the stuff that's been put away or in a spam can. You can get some bad stuff.
I wasn't really happy with them. I know that they will pick up lots of certain things that have had a recall and then turn around and sell them as first-line items.
Right. And I think that's, like I said, we talk a lot about people needing to go and do their research and say, hey, if you're going to spend the money and somebody's offering it for sale, you got to be aware of what you're putting your money down on, because nobody's going to go ahead and refund your money on ammunition that you purchase.
I don't know of any place that actually gives a refund on ammunition.
Yeah, there was one time that I think I've seen something like that happen. It was it was at a rod and gun club, so it was a military affiliated rod and gun club that was selling ammunition, and a gentleman walked in looking to get 222 Remington Magnum ammunition. And for folks who don't know, 222 Remington Magnum is really not produced on a large scale anyways. A 22 Magnum, you'll be able to find it. A 22 Remington or 222 Remington Magnum, that's a very, very hard round to find. And,
right, it's a center fire cartridge versus a rim fire cartridge.
Right, well. And like I said, there's just very, very few manufacturers who are pumping that out. One guy went in and bought, I think he bought 1,000 rounds of 222 Remington Magnum, and then he figured out that he had a 222. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, so he walked back into the store. I was just happened to be in there browsing, and he walked back into the store and he said, "Hey, I just made," and this was something that he ended up having to ask the proprietor to have a special order for him. So, this was basically a sunk cost by the store. As soon as they put the order in on that, it was going to get sold. And the guy walked back in. He's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did this. I needed 222 and not the 222 Rem Mag." And they looked at him with like these big puppy dog eyes, like, "Hey man, I'm sorry for you, but we will not accept that back." And I think the saving grace for him was there was an old timer who was in the store, and he had a 222 Rem Mag, and he just offered the guy exactly what he paid for it right there. I mean, he didn't try and gouge him or anything. Didn't try and take advantage of him in a bad situation and say, "Hey, I'll take that off your hands." And that's the only time I've ever seen anybody try and get a refund on money.
That's pretty lucky on his part right there, because that's not a very common rifle. That's
Yeah,
kind of what maybe it could be termed a wildcat cartridge.
Yeah, and it's hard to find. I mean, like I said, I've only seen that in terms of people having it being specifically used for predator hunting, like fox or some small varmint hunting. I've never.
I would imagine something like that would be excellent for, say, prairie dogs and gophers.
Yeah,
or something
and that's what I'm guessing that they were using it for. Using it for fox or using it for whatever small critter was out there. But like I said, I wouldn't.
You got any idea on the velocity of that?
No, I don't. Like I said, I'm not really familiar with the cartridge, other than the fact that I know that it's very hard to come by. And I think that the brand that guy bought at the time was actually Privy Partisan. So he's getting ammunition from Serbia to probably go in an older American rifle that he's had over there for a while.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people got to take into account is the age of their firearm.
This occurred while you were in Germany?
Yeah.
At the Rock Gun Club? All right, in the United States, that would never happen. I mean, it would happen, but the store policies are usually in every big box store. We do not have any exchanges on ammunition.
Right,
there are no returns on ammunition. Even the gun stores are like that. The better quality gun stores, privately owned, will consider on a case by case basis. But generally, no, there's no exchanges on ammunition.
Yeah.
Once it leaves, that's the kind of item that's quality control issue. It's been out of your hands. There's nothing you can do with it.
Right, and I think that's people. You got to do your research. I was talking to a guy based on an ad I've seen on my local bulletin board, and he's offering a 12 gauge shotgun. It's an older model. It's a Springfield made by Savage, model 67E. I did some research on it, and it's a Vietnam era 12 gauge pump shotgun. And
it's not a military use shotgun. It was just
no. It's
made during the Vietnam.
Right, exactly. Okay. It's made during that. We're talking 45, 50 years ago. So it's a 12 gauge shotgun that he's asking near top dollar for. And I just armed myself with a little bit of knowledge and asked for some pictures. And based on what you can see in a picture on a cell phone, it's an easy way for me to bargain with the guy and say, hey, I'll tell you, I know the value of the gun, and I'll take a look at the bore, and I'll tell you that, hey, oh, by the way, the action jiggles, or oh, by the way, the stock is not exactly, flush with the whole inner workings, and I'll talk to the guy and I'll see what he's willing to do. But the guy, he wants $125, and I don't think I'm willing to pay that much.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd almost see it a little bit different. I would say that almost anything that goes bang is worth at least $100.
Right, and I wouldn't say like, hey, I'm going to offer the guy $30, but I'm not going to sit there and pay top dollar for something that is that old. It's a nondescript 12 gauge.
Yeah, it's not a collector. It's a shooter, and it has value. I'll tell you what. Honestly, I think it's seriously got more value than a $100 bill.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
And it's one of those rare items that the cost of it does not equate with the value. Let me give you a little example of that I found in my life. As we've discussed before, I'm quite fond of the North American Arms mini revolvers, You
Right.
can buy one of brand new for less than $250, 220, 209 sometimes for the smallest 22 long rifle, the most basic version of it, the one that I have.
Right.
You couldn't give me $500 for mine.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. If you were to offer me anything that was remotely reasonable on it, no, I couldn't replace it. The value of it to me is not commensurate with any kind of cash that you could come up with reasonably.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of people want.
Go buy a new. And I think there's a couple of items that fall into that category. Ruger 1022s, unless you happen to be sitting on 15 or 20 of them. Yeah, I know you can buy a brand new one for $249 or whatever, but just because you can buy one for $249 does not mean that mine is only worth $200.
Right. And I think that's something that unless you arm yourself with the knowledge of what the firearm's actual value in your area, because prices vary by location.
And they vary by time.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that there's a lot of room to negotiate in terms of individual private party sales, and the person with the more well-rounded knowledge of the product is definitely going to probably come out on top. I think that if you do your homework, you won't hurt yourself versus going into a deal without the requisite knowledge and potentially being taken advantage of.
Well, I think another important item is to absolutely not fall in love with pictures.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, picture can be worth 1,000 words, but who's to say that's the actual picture of the item that you're going up for? In my dealings with this guy that I'm talking to about this shotgun, I've asked him a couple of questions, talked to him on the phone for a few minutes, and got what information I could think that I could get out of him reliably. Asked him for a picture, and literally I got a picture of a shotgun on a mattress, very far away. Not like a picture of a serial number, not a picture of a barrel stamp by a manufacturer, nothing that shows proof marks, and that's kind of where I was saying, hey, you know what? This is something that I gotta have to see in person before I, commit to anything. And then right there, I can sit there and show him, say, hey, well, here you go, guy. I'm gonna tell you this is what your offer is, and I'm gonna tell you you're a little high, and here's why. And if you don't believe me, you can go ahead and reference this guide, or based on the percent that I estimate your barrel to be worn at, you're happy if you're gonna get this out of it. And some people don't like that. Some people kind of take it as, hey, that's a little bit of an asshole move. But I would rather do my part to educate the guy in terms of, hey, this is what you're actually selling, and this is the going rate for something like that. Now, that's not going to cover if he's he's emotionally attached or invested in the firearm.
I'm sorry, I don't pay for your emotions.
Exactly, and you can't deal with that.
And but that can be something that's a little bit manageable, because if his emotions to that firearm are in conflict with my emotions to that firearm, well, then there's some dealing. Yeah. There are some things out there that I keep an eyeball out for, and I've got a certain amount of wiggle room on certain items that I keep a special eye out for.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think that if there's something like I'm partial to 8mm Mausers only because I know that they are, I know their limitations. I'm familiar with the capabilities, and I know that for anything that I'm hunting, I know that they'll work, and I can handle the recoil. I am familiar with everything about that caliber and what it can do. I will pay more attention to those if I ever see them offered. That's not to say that all firearms are going to react the same, but generally, I think a lot of people have that one caliber that they're familiar with, whether they were raised shooting it or they did it for competitions and they decided they liked it or they had a good experience with it. I will tell you that my first experience with a bolt-action rifle almost set me on a path of not shooting bolt-action rifles ever again, and that was with a 7mm Remington Magnum.
I was gonna ask you, was that due to the enormous caliber of the cartridge and
Well,
excessive recoil.
I think it was due to the fact that the weapon itself was a Savage Model 111, and it was the model that they made prior to having the AccuTrigger and all the
Now,
bells
that's
and whistles.
a synthetic stock. Is that correct?
Exactly, it's a synthetic stock, so it's lightweight. There's nothing really.
That's a Punisher right there.
Yeah, there's nothing really that stops that recoil from impacting you at full force. And I've had bad shoulders probably to begin with for the last 10, 15 years, and I just didn't know it until they really quit on me. But
Until they fall apart.
yeah, until they fell apart. And shooting, literally, I did not even finish a box of 12 rounds. I mean, I finished 12 rounds out of a box of 20, and I had to put it away. And I said, you know what, this ain't for me. I could shoot 30-06 all day. I could shoot 8mm all day. Probably shoot anything 27 caliber and below all day, no issue. But that 7mm Remington Magnum, oof, I literally had burst capillaries where my shoulder pocket would be, where I shouldered the rifle.
I've got a friend with a Seiko 300 Remington Magnum, and that's a Punisher to shoot. I don't necessarily like shooting that rifle.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen guys that just they swear by 300 Remington Magnum. They think it's a 30 caliber cartridge. It's got an awful lot of powder behind it, and it's going to do whatever you want it to. And I'm sure that it is very capable. It's a very it's a very powerful round. But at some point, you're going to do a lot more damage to whatever you're trying to shoot. Because I don't know anybody that just goes out and shoots a 300 Win Mag just to shoot. If you're going out shooting a 300 Win Mag, it's because there's something on the other end of where that bullet is going to go that you hope to be able to put your
there's a target. That's not a plinking rifle, not at
right.
a $1.50 a round.
Yeah.
And speaking of plinking rifles, did I ever get an answer out of you what the price of 22 long rifle was at your local gun shop?
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing is because I talked to the gentleman there at the individual local gun store, and I asked him, I said, do you carry anything in 22? And he says, it doesn't really make any sense for us to do it because we are kind of in between two big box stores. And I said, well, what are you really seeing? He's like, maybe we'll see a brick here and there being offered, but he couldn't even give me a price. And like I said, when I went to the local Walmart, the lady at the counter laughed at me and she's like, "No, we won't do it." So I think in my area, it's more along the lines of there are guys who are working and they have their connections who they're probably getting a kickback, and they're saying, "Hey, come in at 1:30 in the morning. We're going to go ahead and roll these things out on the shelves, and you can come in and get your limit and go."
And leave your 20 on the desk.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's a shame. Here, I'll tell you that the ammo crunch is over, except for 22 long rifle. It's found at certain times. It is in stock in the gun shops, in the privately owned gun shops versus the big box. The big box will have it, but they will have it rationed. Walmart seems to run out of it very rapidly versus Academy.
Right.
And
is Academy just getting more in stock, or are they being more judicious in terms of?
They are hardcore about their limit. They are 2-box limit. There used to be a 3-box limit. They are a 2-box limit now, and changing your shirt and putting on a hat and sunglasses and a fake mustache does not work.
Really? Okay, so they're actually sticking to it.
They are pretty hardcore about it. But they've got a good supply, and people can go in there and get 100 rounds, 200 rounds, maybe a brick if they've got it.
Right.
If it's a brick, you only get one.
Okay.
Which is a little bit harsh, but I mean they've got it. Walmart seems to run out, and I think it's a difference in the focus of the employees, because it seems at Walmart that the gun shop employee is also the paint center employee who's also pushing a cart or stocking soup.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of rare. I think that in certain locations, maybe at the big box stores that are geared mostly towards hunting, whether it's a Cabela's or a Gander Mountain or a Bass Pro or something like that. I wouldn't even lump Dick's Sporting Goods into that. But I would say out of those three, you're going to have some people who are more familiar with ordering certain calibers and the availability of stock, only because that's kind of what those big box stores are known for. They're known for selling firearms. They're known for selling all the different accessories for those, and then the ammo that goes with it. Because honestly, you don't just go to the store to buy a rifle and then don't walk out with ammo. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense unless you've got a go-to site online that you can get your ammo cheaper. I think that there's very, very few people who don't walk out with at least 2 boxes whenever they buy a new rifle.
Same could be said for a handgun. This brings us to a kind of a current event right now. In the St. Louis area, the big box stores are reporting that they are sold out of shotguns.
Wow.
And this is in anticipation of the grand jury's decision regarding the officer and
Darren Wilson, whether or not he will be indicted in the murder,
and
on a murder charge, I should say.
Yeah, on a murder charge, not in the murder. I think Ferguson and St. Louis is just about on the edge right now. I've heard some pretty interesting things. So keep an eyeball on that, and good luck if you live in that area.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that's real interesting to me is that I believe there have been 3 different autopsies performed on the deceased, and all 3 autopsies from independent sources have come back with the same findings. And the parents, granted they're upset that their son is dead, the parents aren't accepting any of them. And the state coroner, the locality or the county coroner, and I think they had a coroner that was put in by the FBI at the request of Eric Holder. They've all come up and said, yeah, this guy had injuries to his hands that were consistent with not only the officer's report but the witness's report that said he was going for the officer's handgun. So, folks out there, it's interesting to me because we've seen riots over time, and not defending the way that the police department initially handled the civil disobedience or the civil unrest, but at some point the folks got to sit there and say, hey, well, you know what, the guy did just knock off a grocery store or a convenience store minutes before this, so there's a credibility issue with the guy, not with the officer.
Nick, we're both old enough and big enough to realize that it's not about the incident; it's about a greater societal problem.
Right, and that's the problem. I wish that a lot more of the individuals out there.
This is just a chance to dance.
Yeah, and you've got people who go out there and will only show up just to whip up a frenzy and get some time on MSNBC because that's what they do, and. You've got the Sharptons, and then you've got the Eric Holders who are now getting ready to leave their positions that they're in.
These are just names and yapping. They're not the guys who are breaking into the Foot Locker or the Radio Shack.
No.
And say it's your Foot Locker, it's your Radio Shack. Some of these are franchises. What do? You put your life's work into opening up a Radio Shack. That's not a cheap franchise to.
No, it's not, and that's one of the things that I think you referenced, back to the Los Angeles riots at the Rodney King trial by the cops in Los Angeles, when a lot of those guys were acquitted.
The Koreans stood up for themselves.
They did.
They armed themselves and stood in front of their stores and on top of their stores, and they didn't get looted or burnt.
No, and I think that if you don't go out there and make sure that your business interest is protected, then you know what? Yeah, you're putting yourself at the mercy of availability of police who are generally only there to clean up the mess.
Yeah, they don't. They get there after it. What's the saying? In when seconds count, the cops are only moments away.
Yeah,
so
minutes away.
Arm yourself. It looks, according to the reports, shotguns are a valuable item in St. Louis, which kind of brings us back to the original topic of. The shotgun that you're dealing with this guy. At this time, if you were a worried St. Louis resident and you've hit every store that you can find and you can't find a shotgun, that old beat up shotgun that you got for $100 is probably worth more than
Oh,
$100.
certainly, and like I said, everything has its time and its place where you'll get probably more than the street value of it. And like I said, that goes sometimes it goes for collectors, sometimes it goes for people that have a nostalgic need or desire to have that type of firearm. And I'm not going to say that this individual shotgun is, it personally it doesn't strike up any kind of emotion because I'm not familiar with it in the sense that, it's something that I grew up shooting. Um, I'm familiar with it enough in the sense that based on the guy's description of it, if it's in the condition that he says it's in, upon my inspection, that would be something that I could, maybe keep for a little while. Maybe it's something I'd turn around and sell. It all depends. It's the free market that allows me to see what's out there and what people are offering. And I guarantee you that it's probably worth more than $100 in that part of the country right now.
So I dare say a good deal more than $100. And even if it's not used, just the peace of mind that it gives. I've got a way to protect myself in case the marauding hordes come up my driveway.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think it's very low in the overall sense of probability. But would you rather be prepared or would you rather be dependent upon somebody else who is prepared?
I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you a question in regards to buying a used firearm. How do you set your limits as to acceptable damage?
Okay,
damage or wear.
Okay.
And noting that there's a difference between damage and wear.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing. If upon initial visual inspection you can tell that there's obvious defects with I would say the first place to look that you're going to be able to really notice if something is damaged or been rough handled, you're going to look at the condition of the stock. For a lot of bolt action rifles, a lot of them now come with the synthetic stocks, and that's not so much of a problem so long as the stock is not loose from the action itself. Shotguns, the very, very, very first thing I do is check to make sure that everything is present in terms of if it's a break open or if it's like a over under or a side by side. I take a look.
Threaded holes that are empty.
Right.
All
Yeah.
screws the appropriate location.
Yeah. No optional parts. You know what I mean? So taking a look at making sure that the barrel is not pitted. Want to make sure that if there's rust that I can see inside the barrel, that if I run something like a quick bore snake or something through that stuff comes off. A little bit of light surface rust is probably not going to make a huge bit of difference, but pitting inside the barrel is a problem. That shows signs of serious neglect. It also gives you a good idea of the environmental conditions with where that firearm has been stored and really maintained. Additionally, you're going to want to make sure that on a shotgun, especially a pump, that you kind of take it by the handle and you give it a good shake. And if you hear loose metal clanging, that's an indication that you've got some loose pins and things like that can hamper the operation of the firearm.
I agree. Have you ever purchased anything that's had obvious defects and with the knowledge that you can easily overcome this, or it's not that bad? I'll tell you, I have.
Well,
I got a screaming deal one time on a Beretta 92 made in Italy, and it appeared that it had been dropped, and the way it had come down is right smack on the trigger guard,
right,
and it deformed the trigger guard and actually cracked that leading corner on it.
Right.
And I'll tell you, for the price, it was totally worth the defect. It's a operating firearm. It just probably dropped from away, and the guy didn't feel comfortable with it. And I got to deal with it. I ended up filing it with a diamond file, with a three-sided file.
Yeah.
And I filed right along the cracks. And I hit it with some silver solder, and that pistol works to this day. It's not beautiful. I mean, I could probably spend $150 to go have it Cerakoted in, pimp gold or something like that.
Sure.
But it works, and that trigger guard is secure. So,
Well, and like I said, I think that
there's levels of damage that I can deal with.
yeah, and I haven't had the opportunity to really look at buying a firearm that's obviously been damaged or not been maintained. The stuff that I have purchased private party, actually, I received a SKB over under, and that was free. And I'm a firm believer.
You gotta love a free shotgun,
right?
No wonder you don't want to pay this guy for his $150 shotgun.
I would much rather get it for free. You're right. But
really,
yeah. But like I said, with this SKB, I did notice that there was probably at some point going to be an issue with the safety, and that's probably something that's not a heck of a hard thing to replace. Things that would concern me is that if it's a break open action, that the ejectors work well, because there's nothing probably more frustrating than firing your 2 rounds and then trying to eject the shells and they're stuck still in the tube.
Not on all shotguns do they clear the chamber like that. Do they come flying out when you break them open?
Right, and that's why you want to take a look at the ejectors if it's so equipped.
Well, there are field grade shotguns that are meant for you to pull them out so you can put them back in a bag, because it's just not sporting like to leave your empty holes everywhere.
Right. And I think that those are really the only 2 firearms I've had a chance to buy secondhand. I mean, I did buy one from a gun store in Germany, and like I said, that was coming from a guy who is a rifle maker. They call it a Buchsenmacher. And Buchse is rifle in German, and the guy does his own refit of the old World War II Gewehr 98s, and he sporterizes them, puts them on nice hunting stocks, and that's something that I didn't really have a problem with, because it was coming from the guy, and he told me, he's like, hey, if you suspect anything is wrong with this, bring it back immediately, and I will take it down top to bottom, and I will make sure it works for you. And that's one of the things that over there I felt very confident about buying from a gun store, or even a private party, because that's the last thing that those guys want to do is be perceived as a cheat or somebody who takes advantage of somebody else when money is being exchanged. That's one thing about Germans that I think is really good, is they tend to honor what they say.
That's a big change from what I'm seeing here in a couple of the groups that I take a look at for certain items. And I'll tell you what, there's guys on there that just based on their profile and the way they type and the language that they use when they're trying to express their sale, I don't want to have anything to do with them. And
right.
If I ever put something up and those guys contact me, I give them the bare minimum of information, because honestly, I don't want them to come anywhere near me.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that gives me a little bit better feeling about dealing with this individual with the shotgun, is that I talked to him on the phone briefly. I had a screaming 2-year-old in the car, so I didn't really get a chance to get all that much information for him. But from what I talked to him, I exchanged a couple text messages. I got photos when I asked for them. I have a little bit better feeling of comfort, in terms of dealing with this guy. And I think that that's something that you got to kind of consider, is what the level of conversation or communication is, and what's your overall feeling in terms of the security of the situation.
There's several things that I look for. If a guy won't have a phone call with me,
right,
and not necessarily a call where he just calls me, but I've got to be able to call him back at the same number.
Right, of course. And
originally, we've got to have 2 phone calls. And I've got my own special way how I work that out.
Right.
He has to speak to me with a certain, I'm not going to say a level of respect. I don't necessarily need him calling me sir or anything. But, yo, dog, I am not yo home, and you are not getting this Glock Fode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that cuts out a certain segment of the population I don't think anybody would want to deal with in general anyways. But
something else that I keep a big eye on is pictures that these people will put in their profiles. And anybody who has a picture with their finger on the trigger is somebody I'm not going to deal with because, Nick, that violates the safety rules. And I'm telling you, it violates the biggest of all the safety rules. And the first one is every firearm is loaded. Until you verify it, you physically check it, you open up that action, you drop that magazine out, you crack that bolt back. However you got to do it, it's loaded.
Right.
That's all there is to it. Rule number 2 is keep that muzzle pointed in the safe direction at all times. You don't want to point it at anything you don't want to destroy. Rule number 3 is know exactly what your target is and know exactly what's beyond your target. Don't shoot a kid. Don't pop that cardboard box with your 10-inch target on it, and then also get the kid a block away on a dirt bike.
Yeah, that brings us to the fourth rule, Michael. And what is it?
Nick, it's the most important rule is keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon. Finger off the trigger, out of the trigger guard until you are ready to use it. Yeah. And
the familiarity with your firearm.
I hate to harp on it, but it's the most important thing. We don't have any accidental discharges. They're all negligent discharges because you didn't follow the rules.
That's right. And I think that we talk about it a lot is become familiar with the firearm enough to know that this is a serious tool. It is a long range drill that will put a hole in just about anything.
And a lot of these tools are built to last. Like as you said, this shotgun is 50 years old. How many other products are out there that are 50 years old that are in common use?
Or not that are commanding a substantial sum of money that isn't a collector's item.
Exactly. I'm sure that the price you're paying now, just in nominal dollars, is probably would exceed its original cost.
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean,
maybe not in true value, but in the nominal dollar figure.
Right. And I think that what may have cost $50 or $100 back in 1965, for it to still cost $100 now, that's kind of amazing when you think about it.
That's a testament to the product itself. And,
well, not only that, it's a testament to our shitty economy too.
Well, that's a completely different story, and we'll have to discuss this probably underneath Chinese democracy at that point.
Right.
Because it's obvious that nobody wants to tackle the question of the economy.
Right. Well, that's not for us to get into.
I'll tell you what, when it comes down to the economy raising the price of one of my beloved sports, absolutely. One of my beloved pastimes, yeah. And the economy has had an effect on it.
Yeah, well, at some point it'll affect everything.
Yeah. Little bit of Texas news with our recent elections. We retained a Republican in the office. Not that I'm necessarily happy about a Republican or a Democrat, but at least he proposes to have a pro-gun attitude. He has said that he will sign a open carry bill.
Okay.
And I heard today, I'm not exactly sure on this figure, but I heard that there were 350 bills proposed today.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of legislation getting passed.
I believe that's a testament to the will of the people.
Well, and like I said, I wondered if that's 350 individual pieces of legislation that is sponsored by a lawmaker, or if that is something that are citizens' petitions being pushed.
Maybe just proposals. It may be. I know that. Excuse me. The proposals for the open carry bill in Texas range from you can have open carry if you have a concealed weapons permit and you meet the exact same requirements as the concealed weapon permit, to a open carry that rivals Virginia or Arizona.
Right.
And strangely enough, the people who seem to oppose the Arizona or Virginia style carry, there could be people who just spent $150 to go get the CCW.
Yeah, of course. They don't want their money to go out the window.
Well, I'm sorry, that's take one for the team, buddy.
Well, hey, you got some education out of it. It's not a sunk cost.
Yeah, really. I mean, that it's a good class, and honestly, even if you don't go get your concealed weapons license, I suggest taking the class just because it's good education and you get to have actual hands-on shooting time.
Yeah,
And
and that's one thing that heck you can't even hardly find in my area. I was talking with my wife about some possible career options afterwards from retirement type. And one thing I've noticed is out here in my locality there are no weapons ranges, no firearms ranges. So I don't know if there's a county ordinance prohibiting that type of establishment, but heck, there's a niche that's there. Maybe that's something that I can fill. So take a look at that in the future.
well, I'll tell you what, I'll be your range master, the guy who goes and gets ice for the clubhouse or whatever. If you do that,
Yeah, it's always speculation, looking to see whether it's hey, do you want to have something that's firearms related? There's a lot of liabilities that are out there. There's a lot of education that has to be done, but you find what you can find, and you do something that gives you a little bit of enjoyment, and that's really what we're going after.
you're in the kind of in the hunting game. There are pipeline jobs where they pay guys to ride four-wheelers up and down the pipeline looking for game, keeping them away from the damaging pipelines.
Yeah, did you ever see the movie called The Gray?
No, I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's a movie about a guy doing such a job, played by Liam Neeson, and doing it on the Alaska pipeline, and doesn't turn out so well for him.
What does he have to do? Fight like a monster or something?
No, he actually did. For anybody who hasn't seen the movie, don't want to give away too much, but he's involved in a plane crash, and he's with a bunch of guys who are initial survivors, and it just doesn't end up well.
I might have to look this one up.
Yeah. So
Maybe not. I'm not that big of a movie guy.
Yeah, just something to pass the time with.
Some of the use of firearms in movies makes me scream, actually.
Oh, well, the big thing for me right now is how everything being advertised is all about firearms. The individual has to have a synthetic stock pistol. Whenever he's holding it, it's got to be held up close to his head, finger on the trigger. Just the advertising is what's driving me nuts right now.
Oh, the like the operator mindset.
Oh yeah, everybody thinks. I think, what is it? I was watching the Monday Night Football game, and Xbox is advertising this Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and the tagline that goes with it is "There's a soldier in all of us," and I will tell you that is wrong.
Well, it might be in all of us, but in some people, it's just a little further buried.
Some people don't have it at all. I've met them. I've certainly met them, and a lot of them live in San Francisco.
Maybe they're just, I don't know, you can't make any excuse for them people, sorry.
No, can't.
No, especially when they can play it on a video game, though.
Yeah. These are the people that elect Nancy Pelosi year after year after year after year.
And the same people also elect Feinstein.
Yeah, well, a interesting story about that was that the pollsters asked the California Democratic voters about the chances of Pelosi, Boxer, Feinstein getting nominated again, and the bulk of the Democratic polled persons say that they are out of touch with the people of California. They are only serving their own interests, and the state would be better served, and the constituency would be better served by people who are more in touch with them. So that's a ray of hope.
That's kind of nice. That's I applaud those soft-headed people in California who feel that way.
Yeah. So here's to think that maybe in a couple of years we'll get rid of those types. But I think Feinstein is 83 and Boxer is 71.
So who do they go and lobby for? Because those reptoids just stay alive for forever. Who do they go lobby for after?
I don't know. Well, Michael, it sounds like we got our bumper coming up.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it. UCY.TV, people. That's where it's at. Purple Chicks Live after dark. Nick, thanks a lot, man.
All right, take care.